Okay, here we go. Welcome to the very first Targa TV Hotlap. Today we're in Sicily, lapping around the Targa Florio, the Piccolo circuit, all 72 kilometers of it. Look at the size of this thing. It is an absolute mammoth track and a hell of a challenge. 72 kilometers then, over 800 corners and 800 meters of elevation. 5 stages, let's have a look at each one. Stage 1, down to the town of Cerda, along that straight, one of the only places we're actually going to get above 4th gear on the entire circuit. Stage 2, through the rolling hills down to Coltivaturo, and then stage 3, one of the most challenging stages, up through the mountain passes up to Colazzano. Very, very difficult here. And stage 4, flowing left and right, still a challenge, but probably the most fun of the stages. And then on to the final stage, stage 5, that Bonfornello, 4 kilometers straight, where we'll definitely get up to our top speed. And there we go. Right, let's have a little look at what we're going to be driving around here today. The Porsche 911 RSR from 1973, probably one of the most iconic race cars ever made. If you think Porsche, you generally think of this car. Those headlights, that ducktail spoiler, absolutely iconic. So we're driving the 1973 Gr.6 version, which is a prototype. More power, better suspension, and all that power coming from a little 2.8 litre flat 6 engine. A manual 5-speed, so all hand and footwork, this very physical car to drive. And let's have a little look at how much power this thing's putting out. 360 brake horsepower, a huge amount for such a tiny engine, and the weight only 675 kilos. Such a light car, which makes it a dream in the corners. Top speed of around 300 kilometers per hour, and that 0 to 100 in 3.7 seconds. Let's have a little look at the tyres we're running today. The vintage soft compound. Generally, vintage means a bit harder, so we got that medium tyre wear, not too much there. And the grip levels are around about medium, but affecting that will be our green track state. 95% grip, trying to emulate those dusty roads and give us a bit of realism. So expect the car to slide quite a lot. It's definitely not my driving. Okay, so last couple of corners here until we get to the start-finish complex. Lap timer in the top right of your screen. Hooking the car in, very difficult to not catch the inside here, and off we go. The rear end stepping out already on this car, just to give you an idea of what we're going to deal with throughout this lap. Hooking the car in on these first few corners, very important, just so we can feel how the car's feeling. Are those tyres heated up, especially on this corner? If you get that wrong, straight down into the void down there, and that's your lap over. Down there we go, this corner, very important to get those braking points right, otherwise we go straight in to the stone walls there. And pretty much that sets the theme for the whole lap. Pick your braking points and get that car turned in, otherwise you're into a concrete barrier or worse. Of course, we're talking about a car here from the 1970s, so there's no electronic assist. It's all pretty much mechanical feedback, or at least in this case, what you can feel through the steering wheel. I think sometimes when you're watching this, take this corner for example, it looks reasonably easy, but if you get that braking point wrong by about 10 meters, you're off into the void. Driving this car slightly differs from driving GT3s. Take this for example, turning in early, getting that late apex and then accelerating out, but you're almost trying to induce some slide. This rear end of this car really wants to turn on you. It makes it so agile, but when you're so used to driving cars that are just really planted, all it wants to do is spin out on you. So this car in particular, it's a manual 5-speed, so old school manual, H-pattern shifting. And it actually is quite tricky on Assetto Corsa to get it right. You are using the clutch, but the pedals don't have a bite point as per a traditional car. So you're kind of changing gear in this very strange, extremely fast way. And you have to make sure that you're blipping the throttle, so putting gas in when you're changing down the gear. Otherwise, all you'll do is lock those rear wheels and spin out you will. Our gear ratios are slightly tweaked for this track, so we've got a very short first gear. It'll be very rare for us to be in first gear. Some of the hairpins that are going to come up a little bit later, you'll see me going down into first, but mostly we're going to stick in second, third, and fourth for some of the track. So second has been extended. Second's a longer gear just to give us that drive out of the corners. Because changing gear is kind of lost time. So I want to do that as little as possible. Third is pretty short, and fourth is quite long. So that we're kind of in that higher gear, giving us that speed. Fifth is there, but we're pretty much only going to make it on 2 places on the track, and this is going to be one of them. Here we are then, the town of Čerda, our first stop, the end of stage 1. Hook the car in, and then we have this massive straight along here. Let's see how fast we can get. Absolutely insane to think that this was an actual track with people standing alongside there. There we go then, stage 1 done, 3 minutes 16 seconds, and the highest speed of 232 kilometers per hour. We're going to go even faster than that later. Hooking the car into these corners, extremely pleasing, full throttle the whole way through up to this corner. And we're about to get into the meat and bones of stage 2. There's our turn off, and we head south into the hills just south of Čerda. Section 2, quite a fast flowing section, but with some very tight corners that can catch you out. On the right hand side you have those concrete walls to kind of bounce off if you get something wrong, but down to the left hand side the ground just falls away, and that's your lap over if you get it wrong. This section, very fun. Very easy to get it wrong though. Very, very fast. Climbing up through 4th. This corner here, very tricky. Early turn in, avoid the wall on the right hand side, and then get the car turned in here. Don't lose the back end, and accelerate out. Very, very fun. And then suddenly you've got a really tight right-hand corner, as you can see. Nearly lost the back end there. And this is one of the, let's say, kinder stages of the Targa Florio. Kind of lets you stretch your legs before you get into the really technical tight corners of stage 3. Targa Florio just has no safety nets. Part of the reason why it doesn't run anymore. It's not like other tracks where you have runoff, you have tyre walls. Essentially, this is just a public road. You've got concrete supporting walls and big drops either side. And things are going to get much worse when we get up into the mountains. So if you miss that braking point, as I said earlier, it really is game over. But it's one of those tracks that requires utter focus, and also kind of makes it probably one of my favourite tracks, especially on Assetto Corsa. If you want to test a car to its absolute limits, you take it on this track. And it takes you probably 50 laps until you're kind of comfortable with how the lap is about to go. Nearly lost the rear end again there, touching the dirt. But yes, it is a very, very tough track to learn. So those mountains in the distance, it does look fantastic, by the way, but we're going over there. That's how big this thing is. Over 800 corners. You're almost never going to learn all of them. But that's also part of the excitement of driving here. You think you know the track. Like, I know those first 2 stages very well, because I have crashed out more times on them than any of the other stages. And you restart the lap and you do it over and over again. But you do these sections of the track over and over, and there's a corner that just catches you out. You get the braking slightly wrong, and then you go again, and then you perfect that corner, and then you move on to the next corner, and you're just doing this over and over and over again. Think how many times it would take you to perfect a corner on a traditional track, you know, with, let's say, 15 turns on it. But this has 800 corners on it. So every lap has room for improvement, and you're always learning. That's why this never really gets boring to drive. So 7.5 minutes in now, finding the comfort zone, you relax a little bit, and you nearly put it in the wall. Real close there, really close. I think we're going to see a replay of that. This replay will show you how fast we're coming through here. Look at the speed there, through there, nearly clipping the wall. Nice bit of slow-mo for you here as well. Very close to ruining that lap, and you've done 7.5 minutes, and then you've got to reset because you want the perfect lap time. If you're practicing, of course, you can carry on. Learn from your mistakes for next time. But if you're looking for that perfect lap, reset, get going again. There's a concept in racing that after about 10 minutes, you find utter focus. And this track does require full focus. But everything seems to slow down a little bit. Get used to the speed of the car. Get used to how the car feels. And you feel completely in control. However, that's when a corner will catch you out. So nearing the southernmost point now. These mountains getting ever bigger, nearly at stage 3. These mountain passes wait for us. Beautiful corner, this one. Carrying the speed through, braking really early here. There's a wall that wants to greet you. Those tyres screeching in pain. And here we go. Our first hairpin, and down to first. First feeling a little bit lonely as it's barely ever used. Because it's such a short gear, it's got so much power and torque behind it. Very easy to spin the wheels out. Locking up a little bit here, nearly into the barrier. Crossing one of the many rivers here. And making our way out east. Nearing the bottom. Very tricky corner here. There's a curb on the inside that wants to take your life. Over the bump, control the car. A little bit early on the brakes here, but down to first, hooking the car in. There you go, spinning the tyres out. There's a bad gear change there. And that's pretty much the first third of the track done. And just when you think you're out of the woods, the real challenging part starts. We can go into a little history of the Targa Florio. Started in 1906 in a very different form. Rather than the 72-kilometer Piccolo circuit, it was run on an over 100-kilometer circuit around the island of Sicily. And if you think the cars in 1906 weren't exactly built for incredible speed on their small tyres, there was a 3-lap race on it, taking over 9 hours originally, which is just incredible. But in the form we're driving it here, it was part of the World Sports Car Championship up until 1973, the year this car debuted. And it was a time trial. Very difficult to race side by side on these little roads. So unlike the rest of the races, this was a time trial. 11 laps, 2 drivers, and basically you were just trying to do the 11 laps in the fastest time you could. And this car, or at least the Group 4 version of this car, slightly different, won this race. Guys van Lennep and Herbert Müller won with a lap time of about 33 minutes and 41 seconds, beating Ferrari and the Alfa Romeos, both on reliability and their pace. And that was one of the main things at this time in racing. Each year they'd push the technology further and further and they'd build these incredibly powerful engines, but their reliability just really lacked. So if you could even finish the race, it would be an achievement. Okay, we're just coming up to this bridge here, which signifies the point at which we turn north, around about halfway through the lap, in distance, not in time. Stage 2 complete, 9 minutes and 40 seconds. And there's our turn off there as we head into the mountains. Here begins the real challenging section then, where coming off is a sheer cliff face rather than just a concrete wall. Keeping up with the stage times there. A lot of commitment through here just to not lose time on these tricky corners. Being real close to the wall. This corner braking super early, trying to get that turn in. The Porsche 911 RSR really dominated in 1973, especially in those big endurance races. It won to the dismay of the Ferraris. Daytona, Sebring and the Targa, was a class winner at Le Mans and secured Porsche's racing legacy. And of course now, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't know the name Porsche. It's kind of insane to think about the thousands of spectators that would line this track. And we are talking thousands and thousands of people. This is an extremely famous race at the time. And most of these corners are blind anyway. But the corners that weren't blind would suddenly become blind because you had so many people lining the track. And you're talking like literally on the edge of the track. Such little safety standards were put in place. I suppose it was the danger that kind of attracted people. Another fascinating thing about this was, so the event, the 11-lap event happened over one day, but they'd have a couple of days before to practice. So all the teams would come out and put their cars on the track, trying to get decent times. But the roads weren't closed because these are some of the core artery roads in Sicily. So the roads would still be used by the general public. You're talking trucks, cars, horses. Imagine trying to go about your day and a Porsche comes screaming down the road. So they're trying to put in their practice laps while not trying to smash into the traffic that's going on. Incredibly, there weren't really many recorded accidents during practice. I suppose the drivers would have had a little bit of a wary nature driving around here, knowing that the next corner you could be facing a gigantic tractor. And through its entire history, we're talking from 1906, there were only around 9 recorded deaths, which seems, I mean, it's not a low number, but considering how incredibly dangerous this racecourse was, that's a very low number. But because at the time, the way crashes were recorded, and really it wasn't until the later years that proper safety regulations were put in place, or proper recording of these crashes, there could have been more, and we don't know about them, but also spectator deaths, we don't know the number really of those. But ultimately, the FIA knew that the cars were getting a lot quicker. Technology was accelerating faster than the cars. And they knew that it was only a matter of time before there was going to be a huge accident. And the FIA pulled the plug in 1973. This was the last time that these cars would race round here, at least under FIA regulation. The race still operated in some form until around 1977, but without the official recognition of the FIA, the race kind of disappeared into obscurity. There are still sections of the track that are raced today, mostly as rally stages or as classic car racing. So there are remnants of what it was. But that's the great thing about things like Assetto Corsa and the incredible mod we're driving here. It keeps it alive so that you can keep driving it and maybe just experience even 5% of what it was like to drive around this insane track. So while I've been talking, we've been going through the meat and bones of stage 3 again. Rarely getting out of second or third gear. Oh, pretty close. That looked like a little tap of the wall there. And as you're getting into this time of the lap, you're 20 minutes in, the fatigue starts to set in. You're a little bit tired. It's such a physical car to drive. You're trying to remember what corner's coming up. Little lock up there nearly. We're starting to lose our concentration here. And then the inevitable happens, into the wall. A little scrape there. Probably a little bit more than a scrape. The donkey is not impressed. That's quite a hell of a smash into the wall, locking the car up. Losing a fair bit of time there. The way that suspension crunches there. Amazing amount of quality in here. Worth a look. But yes, we're 20 minutes in, so the fatigue starts to set in. You are getting pretty tired. It's a pretty sweaty experience driving this track. And after a little smash into the wall like that, all you're trying to do is find your composure again. I know it's only a sim, but your adrenaline spikes just slightly, and you're trying to settle yourself back down into the lap, try and get that focus once more. Trying not to lose too much time. It's also one of the reasons that I race without the delta bar. If you don't know what the delta bar is, it's timing your lap. You usually have it on the screen and it'll tell you in the green or in the red. If you're in the green, you're making up time. If you're in the red, you're losing time. And it's an incredibly distracting thing to have psychologically. If you know you're in the green, you can kind of relax. But if you're in the red, you feel this constant sense of pressure to pick your pace up, take more chances, take that corner a little bit quicker, brake later. You're already thinking about this when you're driving around here. And the delta bar just adds an extra bit of pressure that I don't think you really need. You just drive the course as fast as you can with ultimate concentration. And then at the end of the lap, you can see what your time is. It took quite a fair amount of time to figure out that you don't really want to race with it on, at least around here. On the smaller tracks where you're doing a lap within a minute 30 or 2 minutes, it's fair enough. But here we're talking about over a 30-minute lap. Any ounce of concentration that you can squeeze out of yourself, you want to have that. So we are coming to the end of stage 3. The tyres will almost certainly be up to temperature, probably over temperature. The car's been overdriven a little bit here. ready for some track jank there. There's a little bit of jank on this track where something looks like it's just a little verge and the car reacts to it like a wall. It's not the end of the world, really. It's my bad driving. But back into the focus. But coming back to the tyres, you're in a constant battle with your tyre temperatures here. So although a lot of the corners are quite slow speed, like these corners here, a lot of them are reasonably high speed corners. Taking that corner at over 120 kilometers an hour. Scrubbing of the tyres, sliding around. This car wants to slide. It's very tail happy. You can try and negate that with some setup changes, especially with the suspension. You're dealing mostly all with mechanical grip here. That tiny little ducktail spoiler at the back does next to nothing, and you're putting temperature constantly into the tyres, and you really want to try and control that. There you go, end of stage 3, and over braking nearly in to the hay bales there. That was extremely close. Again, trying to find that focus. A little bit shaken now. I think we're going to see a replay in a mo of that. But yes, we want to try and control the temperatures of those tyres. Otherwise, we're in a world of pain, especially for the section that we're about to head into. Little replay there. See how close we get. Real close. That. By the skin of our teeth. And those hay bales, of course, are solid objects in the game, so we would have just smashed into them and lost more time. More jank there. Looks like a smooth bit of road, but actually it's a big curb. All right. Stage 4. This is probably my favourite section. Very tricky. Numerically, it's probably the stage I've driven the least, because you're right at the end of the lap here. And there are such little reference points. A lot of these corners are very similar, so they're just like that. A hook in of the left, and then accelerate out on the right. But some of them are a lot tighter than they appear. And the concrete bollards on the right-hand side have caused me so much pain. But when you get it right, it is so flowing, very high speed, rarely getting below third gear, 100 kilometers an hour. This is one of our tight ones. And accelerating out. But again, about tyres, if you've controlled the car well throughout the lap and haven't pushed too hard, you'll end up with a nice amount of grip for this section, and it'll be an absolute joy to drive. So the mod we're driving is by Abullz, and it's a Patreon supported track, so there is a small monetary value to getting access to this, but considering how huge the project is, I think it's probably worth it. The track detail and parts of the actual track itself have all been built from testimony of the time, historical photos, and I believe there's a local who's been taking photos of the actual roads of how they are now. Just an incredible scale of a project to build something like this. And for the future of the project, they've got a drone with a LiDAR scanner on it, essentially like a camera with a laser on it, giving you incredibly accurate data points so that you can create probably the most accurate version of this track ever seen in a sim. An incredible amount of work is being put into this, and it is, I think it's just 2 of them that are doing this, so it's taking quite a long time, but patience is a virtue with things like this, and if it means we just get this for a while, it's definitely worth it. But because the team is so small, there is a slight lack of certain details in the track. As I said earlier about reference points, there's not that much that you can work with. You're more working off of muscle memory than being like, right, there's that big tall tree there. We've got a fast flowing left-hand corner here. But you are using small reference points to try and memorize the track. But apparently there is more coming, and the more the merrier, really. See what I mean here about the challenge of this section. A lot of those corners looking almost identical, but we can see the sea. We are far enough north now that we are nearing the end of our lap of the Targa Florio. But not before we experience that humongous straight in stage 5. Last few corners then, coming up to the town of Campo Felice, the last town before that huge straight. The last few corners here before we enter the town. There it is, straight ahead of us. A sigh of relief slightly happens as you see that, because you know you're nearing the end. Hooking the car in here, real easy to run it over onto the curbs on the other side. And real easy to overspeed here on this left-hander. And there's stage 4 complete. The ocean getting ever closer. Last few corners through the town, and there we go. Look at that view. And off we go. Few tricky corners here before the straight. You think it's all over, and you've still got a little bit of challenge. There we go. Okay, full speed now, up through the gears as we head towards... Essentially, we're joining a motorway here, and this is our joining road. One last tricky corner here. Pick your braking point. Slow it down probably more than you need to. Hook it in. And off we go. Look at the size of that thing. Right. As we climb through the gears, overtaking this slow train. See you, mate. 5th gear. Topping the car out, 300 kilometers an hour. There you go. While we're on the straight, we've got a little bit of time as the car screams at the rev limiter. You probably wouldn't want to do this in real life because you'd probably explode the engine, but alas, we're protected by sim racing law. The RSR program was started in 1973. Imagine that. Making your car the first year you make it, it wins a bunch of races. Porsche were absolutely on point. Norbert Singer ran that program in 1972, born out of their RS program that was already doing racing, but they wanted to make something specifically for the FIA's Group 4 racing group, which basically required a road car homologation. Basically, that means you need to make a certain amount of road-going, normal, in inverted commas, cars to be able to put your car into these races. Of course, the actual cars that were in the races were completely different from their road-going counterparts. Better brakes, better suspension, all the racing parts, engine tuned to high heaven. Such a cool little section that coming out of the straight, slowing the car down, trying to come back into a more manageable race pace. And because of that straight and the speed you're going, we're already nearing the end of our lap. 33 minutes, 40 seconds was that original winning lap time. We are in a little bit of a cheat car here. A little bit more power and nearly 300 kilos lighter. But can my terrible driving get us over the line in time? Real easy to relax a little bit too much on these last few corners, and very easy to get it wrong. Just want to take those breaths, relax, Locking up the wheels there, just as I say that. Here we go. And the last straight. Back where we started. 72 kilometers, nearly done. Hooking it in and back up towards the start-finish straight. Don't screw up that last corner. Hook it in. There you go. 32 minutes, 51 seconds. A few mistakes, not the perfect lap. But we got there and in under 33 minutes. Leaderboard then, only one car on it. Porsche 911 RSR Gr.6 from 1973. Thanks for watching. We'll do a few more of these using various mods from Assetto Corsa, and we'll see how fast we can get. Thanks for watching. See you again.